All right, so we left off on the Quakers, and that the Palantir CEO, Howard Lutnick, the guy who was behind Trump, that was Epstein's neighbor. He went to Haverford College, notable member. We have Rockefeller's career banker and philanthropist, also worked for Reagan administration. We have the Friendly Society, which was a spy group going through third world countries, getting information like Mormons do on their missions. For the Jesuits, we have the Trump, Clinton, Fauci, Colonna, and Orsini angles. And the Colonna and Orsini are two of the most powerful families in Italy, but they're related to each other. They're both Julie Claudy lines. They both admitted while they warred with each other, and they've intermarried. So that's one family. And Colonna, Orsini, they go back to old ties and family ties back in Persia and Turkey. Okay? That's a whole different video. It's going to take hours. All right. Boston Brahmin, Delano Fox. Delano, FDR, Forbes, Lodge, Cabot, Perkins. They were the Boston Brahmin. They were the ones moving all the opium from Turkey to China and from Amsterdam and the slave routes. They were running that side of the network for the English India Company and the VOC, the Dutch India Company. They were working with the Chinese power Jew families, Li and Chang. See, we have the Li family is the most powerful Jewish Chinese family. And then we have the Gao, the Zhao, Zhang, Chang, the Jin family, Zhang, Zhang, Zhang. We also have, it changed in some places. But these are the Kaifeng Jews that we talked about once. The Kaifeng Jews were from a stele in 1480 when the Song dynasty let the Jews settle in Kaifeng and be acknowledged, right? They were already merchants there for 400 years. Some people have tied them. I've tied them myself to 600 AD. Some people have tied them into Assyrian, Babylonian exiles and them being what they used to think was the 10 lost tribes, but there are no 10 lost tribes, right? They were scattered. They know who they are. They're the best record keepers in history, all right? For every empire, they were always the top scribes and lenders, all right? So we have the Episcopalian branches out of England, the Church of England and the House of Lords, right? Lord is a ball. That's all it is. There's no devils here. And that's where we get the Astor family, the Bush family, Harriman, Cecil Rhodes, Salisbury, the Round Table, the Milner, the Vanderbilt Railroads. Like all that comes out of that fake gang of people acting like they are Episcopalian, right? Which that church used to be near a Huguenot church. A lot of the Huguenots came from France, and the Huguenots were 40% crypto-Jewish entire religion. You understand? So when people say they're French, half the time they're Jews. That's just how it is. Scotland and Ireland, the same thing. Now, the Federal Reserve, the openly Jewish Reform Jews were the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the Schiffs, the Lehman Brothers. They all go to Emmanuel, okay? And they're intermarrying. Rothschilds have married Schiff. They've married Strauss. They've married a lot of these families, the Warburgs, right? They're all intermarried from multiple relationships, multiple marriages in history. All right. The Rothschilds are not only the Rothschilds, they're also the Bowers, the Meyers, the Bachrachs, the Cohens. They've had 20 names. They've been around in power for 800 years. People don't even understand their history. And they come from lines before that, like Mayor Rothenberg and from Eliza of Worms. And then they later marry into Maharal of Prague, the most powerful Jew in the 1600s, two of his daughters. Right. So they're connected on the mystic Kabbalah side and they're connected in the banking side. They married into Oppenheim before they were tutored by Oppenheim and started running the Habsburgs' finances, but they were already lending to German princes. They were already in that network of lending to the royalty of the Holy Roman Empire in Germany, okay? So we have these networks are all tied together, right? So these Chinese power families, the four of Hong Kong and the four of mainland China, we have Cheng Cheng Song and Kong in mainland, Lo Li, Ho Tung, and Huang in Hong Kong. Bruce Lee is a Lee, okay? And his grandfather on his mother's side, which makes you maternally a Jew, his grandfather is Bosman, who ran the Bosman Co. in China, all right? The Lee family ran the Bank of East Asia. You understand? They intermarried with some powerful families in the Persian and Jewish networks. And China had whole Persian cities for black slavery in China in the year 1000, 1100, 1200. They were selling slaves heavy into China, okay? Chinese and Persian have been working together since the BC era, all right? They're damn near neighbors, and Khorasan interconnects them, and Khorasan is the only mouth from the Silk Road into China. There's a lot of mountains and hard ways to get through this pass. You have to get through Bactria and Sarazm. So a lot of these merchants, they would always set up at the mouth choke points of different routes. It's just some Khazarian expert thing since the Scythian times. That's what they do. They sit on it, they charge you tolls, and they monopolize food industries, they can cut off supply lines, and then they can kill you if they want. They're in full power by controlling the outskirts, and the hordes on the outsides of all these empires are controlled by these Jewish exarchal Jews in exile leaders who are the most powerful families in the world through all of history, right? The Sassoon dynasty, who worked in China and with all those bankers in the U.S., married the Rothschilds, married the Kadoris, who were running India and China, opium also. They were competitors for a while. Then they worked together. The Sassoons and the Kadoris intermarried. The Sassoons and the Rothschilds intermarried. The Sassoons and the Kadoris go back to Baghdad, jewelry and opium sales thousands of years ago. The Canaanites have been selling heroin since 1500 BC. They had dozens of jars full of heroin they were selling. You understand? We're dealing with the all-time drug lords and their Davidic Judaic line, that is the exarchal line. The kings of their industry are running the slave and drug trade for all of human history. So you have the Sassoons on this side. The Kalinomuses, they're like Eliza of Worms and Clonimus Kalinomus that went to Iberia from Baghdad. Those Kalinomuses become Abu Lafia, Korem with a Q. They become Coronel. They are the Colonna family in Italy, and they are Cologne like Christopher Columbus. Napoleon himself is a Colonna and has a Colonna half-breed son, right? From a Eastern Colonna branch. These families are all over Europe. We all know this, right? So, back to the point. The Chinese, Sassoon, Serdok, Kadori are all called like Rothschilds of the East. The Rothschilds of the West were also in the East, in that same opium market, okay? They were using the British military to attack China when they wouldn't buy opium, okay? Because Rothschilds have had control of British finance for 200 years. So the London Jews, we have Makata, Mendez Nunez. Mendez Nunez comes from a powerful branch in Iberia. Mendez Nunez comes from a very powerful branch. They're Nazi kings themselves, exarchs. Princes, basically same bloodline as Jesus, as David, Solomon. These Kabbalists through all of time, mystics, mystery school families that control temple banking and the silver bullion trade after the Bronze Age collapse. That's their family. That family breaks down into those about 12 different networks that each have their own 10 networks. Just like the nobility of Europe has cadet branches. All right, so back to our board. Now you have the Scientology angle, where you have the Navy intel that was part of Operation Snow White and the largest domestic spying ring thing that we ever had. They also are, he's tied into another very elite person I can't recall right now. You have the Hospitaller Rockefellers, the Malta and the Rothschilds, the Order of Christ, Christopher Columbus's stepfather, or father-in-law, the Teutonic Knights, were the Bremen League, German Jews and merchants. Some of those Teutonic Knights became barons later. So a lot of these knights were Jews, right? The bankers for Europe for all of history have been Jews. They're admin for the Holy Roman Empire. For all of United European time, it's been Jewish admins. Kalinomus, the Rowan Jews for William the Conqueror in England. They constantly hire people from Baghdad or get sent people from caliphates to manage their finances in their serf states, because the Babylonians are the masters of all time of serfing people. You understand that? And the Babylonians' Jewish population was the highest in the world for 1,500 years. That's their city. People don't realize that. They're not lost. Now, let's get back to the Mormons. They're controlling intel and finance. They're doing missions. They're always part of the CIA and NSA. A lot of the server farms are there. They have a lot of crypto-Jewish networks. They're proudly saying they're Jews, but they have a lot of crypto-Jew networks. They had a lot of slavery. They do a lot of spy missions. I'm not saying every Mormon, obviously, but that church is corrupt as it gets. Okay? Over here we have the most powerful Jewish exarchal families: Boston I, Bar Maked, Kalinomus, Sassoon, the Said side in Islam, the Li, Chinese Jewish clans. Those are the most powerful families. But like if I show you Kalinomus, like you think like, oh, they're just Abulafia and Coronel. They're not. They're also Colonna, they're Rothschilds, they're Rockefellers, because their Marquis of Narbonne was a Kalinomus. So that leads off. They all claim that line, and that line was legit.